most sane recruiters have a love-hate relationship with their job because it's very high highs, very low lows. The That's why I would not do well in a sales capacity. Not my cup of tea. Low lows really got to me, and clearance jobs made me the incredible offer to become a meme generator, and amongst other things, I handle their social media. So yeah, I generate memes for my job.
Part-Time Hitter is brought to you by Friendly Forces, a 501c3 nonprofit committed to helping reserve component members seamlessly integrate their military service with rewarding civilian careers. We connect them with employers who value their unique skills and critical role in national security and advise organizations how to become more reservist-friendly. Check them out at www.friendlyforces.org. Friendly Forces is also brought to you by the Fratty Guard, a lifestyle brand for part-time hitters. Check them out at www.thefrattyguard.com and on Instagram at @thefrattyguard. Welcome to another action-packed episode of Part-Time Hitter, brought to you by Friendly Forces and Clearance Jobs this week. This week, my guest is Katie H., who is the content marketing manager for Clearance Jobs and basically an all-around clearance recruiting space expert, I would say. Katie, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for calling me an expert.
You're very
Appreciate.
welcome. As I mentioned, we've tried to do this for a few weeks. I've had to reschedule. That's mostly my wife's fault. I'm all about personal accountability, but I'm not going to take responsibility for that. That said, it's kind of a very timely time with terrible verbiage for us to be speaking right now about this topic. Now, before we dive into sort of resumes and the cleared job market and all that good stuff, you also have referred to yourself in the past as a secret squirrel meme generator. Can you talk to us?
Definitely.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I really call myself a recovering recruiter. So I used to recruit for DoD and IC programs, and everybody, I think, or most sane recruiters have a love hate relationship with their job because it's very high highs, very low lows. The That's why I would not do well in a sales capacity. Not my cup of tea.
Hmm.
Low lows really got to me, and clearance jobs made me the incredible offer to become a meme generator, and amongst other things, I handle their social media. So yeah, I generate memes for my job.
I mean,
Be
that honestly
jealous.
sounds like an amazing job. And I just saw literally a day or two ago some guy saying he was hired as like a meme guy generator. So yeah, I mean that sounds like a dream job to me. So that's awesome for you. Um, so as I mentioned, obviously today is February 25th. There's a lot going on right now with the government, with the contracting space, affecting a lot of you know kind of people like me in the cleared space, affecting jobs. So it's a lot of people are now on the job market or soon
Hmm.
will be on the job market. Um, so I guess I kind of wanted to start out by diving into okay, now there's increased competition. There's more people in the job market. There's ostensibly fewer jobs. Okay. So how do I optimize like my resume to get a recruiter's attention, I suppose, when they're being swamped? Are there hacks that actually like work? Because I've seen, every day people post like do this and then someone else posts, no, don't do that, do this. So it's like I don't know what to believe. So can you kind of shed some light on particularly in the cleared space, what are kind of some resume like do's and don'ts right now?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like, I'll shed my light on it, but the next recruiter you speak with is going to tell you that I was wrong.
Right.
I think, like, more importantly, as we kind of navigate this time after executive orders, hiring freezes, return to office, all the junk that's been going on that's going to change tomorrow and likely next
Mm,
week and in a month. I think the rules of engaging with recruiters are just ever so more important. And so I'm speaking from my perspective, where if I got, and I still get these random messages, hey, look at my resume, like, I'm not going to do that. I'm probably going to ignore that message and move
mm,
on to like higher priority things, or a candidate who is a little more specific, clear, concise, and direct with me. I think when you're reaching out to a recruiter, you already need to have applied to a job via their careers page on clearance jobs, via their website. So you can reference to that recruiter, hey, I applied to this position. This is the requisition number. You are making their life easier. Um, so if you have a vague ask, hey, look at my resume. Hey, tell me what jobs you have for me. That's another favorite. Like,
so
I
people
mean,
actually send those messages.
they do. And so on clearance jobs recently, I've had a ton of people reach out because I'll say, hey, like, if you have a company that you've applied to or like a specific position that you formally applied to, like, send me your resume. If you actually meet the qualifications, like, I'll try to find that recruiter handling that rec and I'll try to connect you with them. And so I'll get a message like, hey, I'd love to be connected with a recruiter. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what company or what skill set, what anything, like, help me help you. And they're like, I don't know, just a recruiter. It's like, dude, there's like tens of thousands of 20s of thousands of, even just alone on clearance jobs, like, let alone like in the private sector outside of the cleared space. Like, so I think just being concise, being direct, being strategic, like, I say it's common sense, but I've been working in this world for so long, and like, maybe there aren't really, this isn't common sense. So when
Well,
you're,
even just hearing you talk, I was always under the impression if I've already applied to that job, have I, in some sense, not helped that recruiter? Like, do they not get credit for it if it isn't funneled?
no, I mean, yeah, if you're qualified for the job, like, if I had an Intel spot I was trying to fill, I'm a qualified candidate with meeting the clearance requirement, meeting the contract requirements for years of experience. If they applied, like, sure, that's helping me. But I think in just kind of the general networking sense, like, especially if there's increased competition within the contracting space because federal workers are out of work. I mean, national security work we're seeing largely hasn't been affected, who knows, but
Mm.
because there's increased competition, like, in a general sense of networking, especially if like maybe there isn't a position that you can apply to, maybe you've been a program manager at you said and like you're trying to figure out what's next, but there isn't a position open for you. Like, you just need to be a little more creative, but keeping in mind that recruiters and hiring managers have like 100,000 other things that they're doing. So like vague asks are just not going to be responded to in inboxes.
So, yeah, I want to touch on something you said because I actually had it written down myself. So, I imagine the easiest way to get a job is to make it super easy for the recruiter and the hiring manager to hire you by concisely and quickly communicating like your value through a
Right.
resume. But so how do we make it easy for them to pluck us out of the you know 10,000 resumes they got and send us to the hiring manager or whatever it may be?
I mean, so one thing that we do or recruiters do in the contracting space, you whether you're if you're a sub, you have a couple other hurdles to jump through. But if you're a prime, let's say you're a prime, somebody applies to a position with a resume, recruiter's like, ah, okay, they it looks like they meet the requirements. They have a phone screen, they have an interview, they send the resume to the hiring manager, they're like, okay, yeah, they meet the requirements. Then you got to send the resume to the government customer, and then they have to approve it. Just already tailor your resume. There is no reason not to, because it's going to have to be to get approved by the government anyway. Just do that before the application. That's the easiest way to get on the phone with a recruiter. And I, I tailoring resumes, that's common sense in my field and where I've been working. What I mean is you need to look at every single minimum requirement, and then even the preferred qualifications, which I
Mm.
think contractors just make those up. The minimum requirements are from the statement of work, but you need to take every requirement, add it where it's applicable in your resume. So if it's 5 years of all source experience, you need to say, okay, I did all source analysis in the Army for however many years you were in, and then whatever contractor you supported thereafter. Maybe you just need to make it very apparent that you meet every single requirement from those minimum requirements.
So yeah, I get that. I think most people understand you need to tailor a resume, but I mean nowadays, if you're
You'd be surprised.
well, if you know you're going to be applying to hundreds of jobs, that's where it's like, well, shit, I can't do this for like every, rework my resume every single time. And then if they want a cover letter, you got to do that too. So two
Right.
questions. I mean, well, I guess one question. Now, the way I would overcome something like that, being a, adaptable person, is there are, I'd probably use AI to help me more quickly do some of that. What are your thoughts on kind of helping AI sort of generate those types of things? Oh, and then I do remember my other question. So specifically for government contracting, is it more important to basically use like the precise language that's in the job description, or on the like more private sector side, they're like, we want to see like outcomes, like show us what you accomplished versus like show us what you've done? Can you talk
Mm.
about that?
Yeah, I mean, the government cares if you're a butt in a billet or a butt in a seat. Like the government cares about the exact language from
Mhm.
the statement of work being in your resume. Doesn't really care about outcomes.
Right.
But I mean, I think if again, if you're, it depends on the level that you're
Right.
applying of the position that you're applying to. And again, like the commercial private sector is going to be different from the contracting world. Like they probably do care more about outcomes. Or someone who what is like a business development person working on overhead for a
Hmm.
contractor. They obviously care about outcomes. They want to see how much business you've drummed up, or in how many customers you've, you know, finessed contracts with, or whatever. But in terms of AI, and everybody should be using AI. I use it daily for my job. Why not? I mean, it's the easiest. It's an easy tool.
Yeah.
Many many software platforms, whatever, have AI capabilities now. Like it's you shouldn't recreate the wheel. And like if you're not a writer, I mean, especially for cover letters, you can use it for resumes. You can use Chat GPT and um, plug in your resume and plug in requirements. And I mean, there's a million things you can do with AI. So I say, why not?
Do companies, this may not be as relevant in this space, but do they have ways of, or are they looking for, if you submitted like a AI generated product, to like, deny you? I've seen companies that have, one company only actually, but it says, all right, we want you to answer this question, and you have to like assert, you have to click this box saying you did not use AI to help you answer it.
Right, right. I mean, it's funny. Like, I, I don't know. I haven't recruited in like over 5 years now, so I'm trying to like put myself in a recruiter's shoes right now to if I would even like care if a candidate used AI. I can't imagine that people would, just because it is so readily available now. I think just the caveat being like check your work, obviously. I know, especially in the creative space, like AI, like creating images, you have to worry about like stealing other people's art and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So I mean, like I don't think the same is necessarily true for a resume, but obviously you're going to want to check your work because like I've seen some like unhinged images come out of AI, and I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
I'm really glad I took a look at that because what is happening here? But um, yeah, I don't know that candidates really or recruiters really care. I but it's funny, on clearance jobs, I've produced like an article like how to tell if a candidate's resume is written by AI. So like obviously there's some like
Right.
subliminal messaging
Well, yeah, I
or
mean, there's definitely like clear cut indicators if you don't prompt it correctly. But again, I guess the easiest way is to show the contractor that they can immediately or as soon as possible put you in a seat and start billing the government for you because you meet all the requirements that the government
right.
is demanding. Um,
Well, and I think for your audience, like when it comes to building a resume, like I mean, you have like the internet at your disposal. Like you don't have to like really think too hard about what you've done. Like you can find like an MOS description online somewhere and like use that to your benefit as like a jumping off point. Um like you can if you're trying to get into the contracting space, like go to clearancejobs.com and look at some of the positions that people are advertising for, like use that to like help build your resume.
what's kind of the current knowledge on best practice around resume length, and then like I struggle with this. How far back do I go? Because I feel like I do have relevant experience. It goes back like maybe even over 10 years, but
Yeah,
do I want to put that on page three? Because so what about that kind of stuff?
yeah, I mean, resume length, again, like there's going to be a recruiter that totally disagrees with me, but I saw recently, just because I'm so passionate about this topic, and I'm like, who the hell is pushing this like 1 page, 2 page resume like maximum narrative? Like who is actually doing that? Because like recruiters, hiring managers, even the government does not care about like if you have 10 years of experience and you have a 3 or 4 page resume, like unless you're submitting to a proposal that like has actual maximum page lengths, like they do not care. They care about keywords. They care to see that you actually can showcase that you have the experience to do the job. I've seen like if you have 5 years experience, you should have 1 page resume. If you have 10, you should have two. If you have 50, and it's just like, no, but what? Who is saying this?
Well, from what I
Like,
gather, it's recruiters saying like I get a million resumes. I'm kind of I'm essentially I don't want to give more than 5 seconds of my time to quickly skim you to see if you're worth my
send those recruiters to me because
time.
every recruiter has control F, like
Okay.
to first search for keywords, like that takes 5 seconds. So if you're like, again, trying to target and or see if someone is qualified for an intel position you're trying to staff, search an intelligence analysis or search DSIGs or whatever tool, like that takes 5 seconds. But I mean, many recruiters that I've spoken with do not care about resume like page maximums or lengths. And like, I mean, that's the question I get a lot, like between like federal resume or not. And it's like, I mean, I actually am fine with a federal resume, even though it's longer, it's more detailed. Like, I at least can see that, like, it's just more meat for me to look out to make sure that you can actually meet the qualifications. And I mean, so on the flip side, you ask about how far back you should go. That all depends on the position that you're applying to. If you're applying to a position that requires 10 years of experience and you have 15 to back it up, I would just go with the 15. But if you're applying for something that has 10 years of experience, you really need a job, you're just looking for something to do, and you have 30, I probably wouldn't put the 30 because, like, so, people are ageist. So I think just making sure you hit the requirements and also being mindful that like people have biases. So
Are there any recommended like templates that you like or recommend as far as resumes?
I mean, we have some on clearance jobs, and like, don't judge me too much. I need to go through and update them. But news.clearancejobs.com, you can find a bunch of resume templates. Depending on the job that or jobs that you've done in the past and the jobs you're trying to go after, there are a ton of free resources. I've heard from a couple of people like don't pay people to do your resumes, especially in our space. Like there are so many people who are just like willing to take a look at a resume and help. So there are a lot of free resources. I wouldn't pay. I mean, you can find you look on LinkedIn, somebody's like
Some of those people
they're
charge a
promoting.
lot for those.
Well, they're promoting their business, and
Yeah,
it's just like Jesus.
yeah.
Which I mean, that's what it's for. But don't pay anybody to do your resume. I mean, again, Clearance Jobs has templates. Don't judge me on them. But we're always happy to take a look at a resume and help out.
Um, so anyone who's kind of been in the space for a bit is going to have an understanding of LCATs or labor categories. Can you talk a little bit about that and then sort of the implications there for essentially that is going to determine what you can be paid?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I mean, the nature of the business. Really fun stuff. So labor categories, I'll equate it to probably just a contract that will like always be burned in my brain. It was the counterinsurgency targeting program. So you have your entry level, journeyman, senior level, etc. Like people promoted to team leads, and then that's kind of how you aged out of that program. When as a sub on that one for the prime, like that when they submitted their winning proposal and then won the rebid every 4 or 5 years, whatever length of time that was. I mean, they submitted pricing, and then depending on like a sub's wrap rates and whatnot, their contractors aren't able to just like I don't know. I'm trying to think of the word. They're not lying about what they can offer on some of these things. And a lot of the times they're shit rates. I
Well,
mean,
so the rates I feel like haven't changed since about 2002. Is the way I
right.
feel. It's like, dude, because I see what some of these jobs are offering, and it's like you want the moon and the sun and everything, and you don't want to pay very much for it. And it's like this might have worked for this number, 20 years ago, but like I don't know. And then the fact
Yeah.
that you could be an absolute genius, but you only have 5 years of experience. So they're never going to pay you at the
Right.
15 years of experience, even though you might be way better than that person. That's another thing
Right.
that kind of bugged me about this industry.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. It bugs me, which is a nice way of putting it. I mean, with like that particular contract, I think like eh, the target audience for that was obviously folks coming out of the army, transitioning out. Um, that was like an easy way to like I guess transition into the private space, and they made their money on deployments, and it wasn't like a full-time deployment. I think they even had like a 3 month rotation
Right.
location. So yeah, it is a sucky part of the business. I know that like LCAT reform is something that is pretty important to clearance jobs, but unfortunately, we're kind of we can like say all we want, but like we're not the ones who make those decisions.
Well,
So
right. And, as I said, I feel like once you have more people desperate for jobs, then companies can pay less because they have more, it's just supply and demand.
right.
So I don't know.
Well, and I mean like that's what amazes me about some of these I mean, not even like household names within this space who are able to offer these like really sizable like sign on bonuses. And I think that's how companies are trying to compete. But I'm like, where's the money coming from? Like,
Yeah.
I know what are most contracts. Like, I think people can like infer on what people are able to pay salary wise. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, we'll kind of see how this shakes out. Are there any are you seeing any particular, and again, this could all change like as you said tomorrow, but any like particular I guess big, agencies or contracts or industries or skill sets that are like very much, right now as of today, still hiring, still in demand, and that we think will continue to be at least for the, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think AI and cyber defense, or really, I think any technical skill set, I think is still going to be safe. I think public safety, law enforcement ish, for certain agencies will still be safe, but largely, like I said, I mean, national security and public safety positions are kind of exempted from a lot of these slashes that we've seen. Um, I mean, what I'm hearing from contractors is it's still business as usual for hiring, aside from, again, like certain agencies that we've seen people let go. And then I know that for certain agencies, the probationary, like you've been employed within the last
Mm,
year, like some of those folks are getting emails. I
yeah.
mean, really, I think there's a place for people like that within, the private sector who are receiving those emails. But again, there will be competition. So,
Yeah. Do you happen to know off the top of your head, like how many cleared people are in the workforce, or like how many clearances there are active,
oh
ballpark?
man, I want to say it was 4 million.
Wow. Seems like a
But I
lot.
mean, that number might be a little misleading because, yeah, 4 million, because that technically isn't like everyone in access using
Mm,
their clearance in the
right.
door in a skiff.
Yeah. So, for somebody who's, I guess, coming off of active duty, or, a reservist who maybe, I don't know, is looking for a new job or a new industry, dipping their toe into the cleared industry, they have a clearance, you know, what's the best way you know, to get into the cleared space? Obviously, clearance jobs is a resource. What's the best way to use that? And then, what else can they do to sort of get themselves in the space and eventually, hopefully, get hired?
Yeah, I mean, for anybody transitioning out of the military, I think, or transitioning or pivoting like from one skill set to another, I think this applies to them. I mean, just starting early. I think people underestimate like how early you need to start when it comes to building your network, figuring out how to write a resume. Do I need to write a cover letter? Um, and again, building that network, getting mentors, whether informal or formal, getting people in your corner, and then like asking yourself the questions like, what do I even want to do? Like, do I care about working remotely? Do I care about like making memes? Do I care about like spending time with my family? Do I just care about money right now? So like figuring out what those important questions are for yourself, and then kind of being open and flexible. So like if money is all you care about, like figure out what contractors are hiring in shit locations like Ohio
Hmm.
and get paid for a year or two, just realizing that it's like not forever. If, spending time with your family is more important, like you need to figure out where your family wants to be and like how many hours they want you to work. So again, like recruiters can and hiring managers and all of these people in the talent acquisition space can only help you so much. You need to like help them help you really, and you need to understand what you want to do. um in terms of using clearance jobs, That's going to be the best resource when it comes to, I think, finding a job in the cleared space. I mean, notoriously, like, I hear that from candidates all the time. Like, that's how they get whatever job they want in the cleared space. And then on the flip side, like, for me personally, clearance jobs was my biggest or top resource for cleared candidates.
Hmm.
And I continue to hear that from other recruiters. I think, building a profile on clearance jobs, it's super easy, super user friendly. Again, you just need to make sure like as many keywords for the jobs that you're interested in are in that profile or in that resume. I think if a recruiter reaches out, a lot of candidates or job seekers, I mean, if a recruiter reaches out about a role maybe that isn't in your wheelhouse, it's so easy to just be like, this stupid idiot, and just ignore. I mean, maybe reach out and be like, hey, that's not really my jam, but if you have something like this, let me know. So I think
Hmm.
just being like nice, even if somebody is a big dodo brain, it can, be a stepping stone or build a bridge for something in the future. You don't know when you're going to need it 5 or 10 years down the line. Joining groups, we have like groups like LinkedIn does. We have shoot. Oh, we do like a military transition like boot camp. It's just like an hour long, like quarterly on Clearance Jobs Live. It's more of like an intimate setting, so like you can ask whatever question you might not feel comfortable doing in like a tap program or whatever venue you're gaining support from. So yeah, just kind of like building confidence and feeling comfortable and like putting yourself out there. And um, I think when you go to events, like uh, depending on like how far out you are from like your transition or needing work or whatever, um, again, just like knowing what the intent is. I was at an event a couple months ago, and like this dude was just so overwhelmed. Like, it's
Really?
like, I don't know how many companies are going to be here. Like, I don't know what to say to these recruiters. And I mean, like, that's also refreshing. Like, being like, I'm like a little nervous. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Um, I Recruiters are human too, but like have that moment and then be like, okay, I need to get it together. What am I trying to do with this event? So I don't know.
I'm seeing a trend on LinkedIn. These are probably fake stories as of, like 99% of stuff people post on LinkedIn, but candidates going out of their way to get the attention of recruiters. And this probably applies more so to the private sector, but you know, I think I saw something like a candidate found a recruiter and left a loaf of bread on their desk and with a sticky note that said, if you hire me, I won't loaf around, or some bullshit like that. And the person made a post about how it was stupid, but it got their attention. And then I forget what again, I'm sure it was fake, but do you
Right.
recommend non-traditional ways of engaging with recruiters, like leaving a loaf of bread at their house, tracking them down, finding
Hmm.
them?
I mean, if anybody like who's listening to this has seen me talk about anything online, like don't be weird, don't be like I mean, there's a fine line to like professional stalking, like following up, like, hey, I applied to this, like, hey, 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 and then like being really like weird stalking. And
Hmm,
so don't do that. I wouldn't recommend tracking a recruiter down.
right.
I think being punny, I don't know. I like a good chuckle, especially if I've had a terrible day. I think that's totally fine. But again, there's no like magic like crystal ball where if like you don't meet these requirements, like leaving a loaf of bread is going to get you the job. So like, you know what I mean? So
I kind of want
I,
to try that now and just show up in someone else's LinkedIn story about this stupid thing that somebody did to them. I'm going to try
I
that.
mean, honestly, you're giving me really great content ideas, Eric, because I'm going to come up with like the most BS fake story. I might even use AI to do it to post on LinkedIn
There
and
you
see how
go.
much engagement I get.
No, I just want to come up with the worst pun ever and then use it as a gimmick to try to get like, you know, Palantir or somebody to hire me.
Right? AI can help you with that. Just talk about some like weird legal ninja. What are they obsessed with? Lord of the Rings? I mean,
Yeah,
you can come
they
up with
all are.
something punny
Yeah,
there.
I think Anduril. Do you know the company Anduril? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if that's a Lord of the Rings reference. It might be. Um, but yeah, they're all obsessed with Lord of the Rings for some reason.
Yeah.
Um, I think I remember talking about this with Lindy, but again, saw on LinkedIn. I think it was a recruiter that was saying nowadays your LinkedIn profile may be more important than your resume. Is that true? Do we have any tips or hacks for making a effect? Like, A, is that true? And B, like, how should we be
I
making
think that's LinkedIn trying to infiltrate in some strange way.
They
Like,
would never do that.
no, like resumes are still important. Like, I don't know. God, recruiters are so terrible on LinkedIn. I mean, and that's the beauty of clearance jobs. Like, you know, obviously I work for clearance jobs. I'm going to put a plug in for clearance jobs, but you're not getting all of the LinkedIn cringe that, like,
Hmm.
maybe some people, I mean, I don't
I
know.
kind
Maybe
of
they like
tune in
it.
for the LinkedIn cringe now,
There you go.
but
Well,
there's much less actual business value these days. It's more like,
exactly. I mean, if you're looking for like really career minded community and like networking and like job transactions, like for clearances and clearance jobs, like clearance jobs is where it's at. But no, I think resumes are still important. Resumes are always going to be important. I mean, I think in the commercial space, yeah, maybe you just like send somebody your LinkedIn URL and that might work. For the government, not so much. I think resumes are still important.
um, damn, I had an important question that I just lost.
Was it
Um,
about bread?
no, it wasn't about bread. Um, oh, okay. So I'm a bit curious about like clearance jobs, right? If you have this data, like how many or what's the average number of like open positions that a clearance jobs company is like listing? Is it like 10 or is it like 100 or anywhere in between?
That's going to be like way across the board just because you have, small contractors that are getting the best athlete positions. Maybe, you know, they have one prime contract, and then you have the mid, you have the large, then we have staffing agencies. I've seen, some of the small mom and pop shops only have a couple of positions listed on clearance jobs, but then you have some companies that have like between 500 and 1,000.
Hmm.
Um, so that's going to vary. There isn't necessarily an average um, uh, that would make sense data wise. But I mean, generally, we usually have between like 60 and 70,000 total. That's anywhere from
Total
a
job
public
openings?
trust. Yeah, that's
Wow.
anywhere from a public trust up to a TSSCI with some sort of
What is the
poly.
point of a public trust clearance? I don't think I've ever met anyone who like that was their clearance level. Who it's barely anything, right? Like what does that even mean?
Yeah, I mean it's so it's not necessarily a clearance, it's you're holding a position of public trust. I only think I've staffed one customer and contract that has been public trust, and that was at the US Patent and Trademark Office.
Hmm.
The company I was working for did some software development um work for them. So that was public trust. So the
Do you have
public should be
any
able to trust you.
Do you have any Q clearance jobs or like Yankee White type stuff?
I never. I mean, I had candidates or job seekers that had Yankee White. The Q clearance work that I did was it was really weird because it wasn't technically Department of Energy,
Hmm.
but it was the client was DIA, but they wanted people who had Q clearances from energy. So essentially, they were going to reciprocity transfer over to, the intelligence community side, but they wanted someone who had supported Department of Energy, had a Q
So
clearance.
Q clearance is just TS, like TSSCI, but from DOE, right? Is that pretty much what that means?
Correct.
It's not any
Yeah.
other special vetting that
Nah.
needs to be done. Okay.
No. And
And
then I think it's L is the secret level for them.
okay. And then and then Yankee White is like anyone who's in proximity to the president, or I guess other
Yeah.
important people.
Yeah, and I mean Lindy Kaiser, she is like the clearance queen. So I mean, she talks about like
She's the goat.
the goat for sure. She like breaks down any sort of like weird acronym, whatever related to clearances over on our YouTube channel. So you can definitely, if you have a topic that you're really curious about,
I just want to be able to tell
yeah,
people I have Q clearance because no one knows what it is and it sounds important.
right. But I don't. But it's funny how important people make themselves out to be. Like at an event, like I had Q clearance, and I'm like, fantastic.
You ever watch the show Archer?
So yes, but like I didn't think it was as funny as my husband did. So
That sounds
like,
about right. I would be like laughing my ass off. My wife would be like, "This isn't funny," but that his character is always, from time to time to, we'll say he has Q clearance. I don't think he knows what it is, but he says it to try and win the trust of whoever he's
I
talking.
need to do some Archer memes because we're
You
always
should.
on like Top Gun and like James Bond and Secret Squirrel, like Archer. I need to bring that up
I
because
don't.
I can appreciate the show. I really
Hey, the
can.
show, yeah, it aligns. It's about a spy agency. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's still on or not, or if they still make new ones. But my other question was: so is there anyone right now, any particular companies? And I guess it's cyclical, right? As a new some new $10 trillion contract drops, now it needs to be staffed, type of thing. Are there any companies that are like, we need a bunch of people like right now that you're able to call out that are on clearance jobs?
Oh, for sure. So we released the oh my gosh, what am I trying to say? The defense contracts valued at 7.5 million and above every day. Um, and I mean, all of the like, I could call out like it's main a bunch of small businesses
Okay.
actually. Like you'd be surprised daily you see small businesses winning those contracts above 7.5 million. So proud of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, if and I have a big place in my heart for the small contractors, just because that's all I supported. Because I never wanted to be a number with some of the bigger ones, but I also didn't have as much stability
I
at some of the small and mid-sized ones.
Well,
But
that's kind of the trade-off. And I was going to ask because
yeah,
I've on clearance jobs, I've seen, obviously you see your Booz Allens or whoever, but then you see a lot of
yeah,
smaller companies. And
yeah.
what kind of is the difference in your experience between the two, if there are pros and cons? Obviously, you touched on one already, that if a small company loses a contract, you probably don't have another job with that company to jump to, as opposed to
Right.
a massive company.
I mean, I loved working for small contractors where I could walk down the hall and like the president of the company, like I
Mhm.
could just walk in their office and like have a conversation. That was super cool to me. Or the executive team or whatever. Like if I
Right.
had ideas, like I could certainly have a conversation. Or like when I entered this space, I was a part-time receptionist for 16 hours a week and I was working for a small contractor and like they allowed me to support so many different parts of the business to figure out like what I wanted to do or what I liked. And I don't think you would have that sort of opportunity at a large contractor like they have a position, you fill it, you don't meet the requirements, well, screw you. Um, so that's what I like about the small contractors, and then also like it just feels that much cooler when you actually win like a prime on something, and you're just like, yeah, I
Hmm.
was a part of this. Like
Right.
that's super cool. But then on the flip side, like You get really killer benefits at large companies.
Right.
You have that stability. You do have that upward mobility or like moving from
Lateral.
contract to contract. Yeah, lateral if like a contract is if someone doesn't win a recompete, which at a mid-sized contractor I was a part of that and that wasn't fun, but there were other places for people to go. Um and I mean, if you want to upgrade your clearance, like you can generally do that at a large company. If you're trying to break into this space, like a large company is usually the route to go because they have unclass work like Microsoft, Booz,
Yeah,
AWS.
that's
Like they
true.
all have the unclass work while they put you through for the clearance. So, I mean, just depends on what you want.
I was going to ask too, because I don't think I've seen this on clearance jobs, but maybe it does exist. Is so, everyone kind of knows a lot of the big players, the big defense contractors in the space, many of whom post jobs on clearance jobs. But then you have other companies that aren't, your classic defense contractors, but have a need for cleared individuals. So
Mhm.
I don't know. Salesforce has a public sector. They need cleared people that can sell
Right.
Salesforce to the government. Do you have those kind of companies or jobs on clearance jobs, or will you, or etc.?
Um, Short answer, yes. We definitely have folks that like are thought of as more of a commercial name, but likely have a need for cleared people.
Yeah, I guess what I see is like customer success or AE type positions that need to be cleared. Um, so do you have any of those types of positions on clearance jobs?
Um, yeah, I'm sure we do. I mean, it's a lot of jobs to go
Yeah,
through,
I know
sift
it's I
through.
know it's a lot of jobs. So, if you could just go through every single one of them and let us
Definitely,
know.
I'll report back
Yeah, all
for
eighty
you
thousand
part-time hitters.
or whatever it is. Yeah, there you go. Um, okay. Well, I'm wrapping up towards the end of my questions, but do you have any sort of lingering like guidance or thoughts for uh, you know, well, particularly reservists, but anyone who's either in or looking to get in the cleared space and kind of looking forward? Do you have any predictions, or are you seeing any trends already that may shape, the environment that we're all living in right now?
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I always tell folks like, because everybody reaches out to clearance jobs, like I don't have a clearance, but like I really want one, and like I want to know more, and I want to break into the space. I'm always telling people like, join the reserves and get your clearance. So
Yeah,
I got love for you folks as well. I think especially right now in like current events, like it all is such a weird time. I mean, I just did a probably LinkedIn cringe post recently or today. I continue to get like the texts and emails from people like, I got the email or I lost my federal job or
right.
whatnot. And I know it seems like it's such a weird time for the federal government and this work, but I mean, we're just continuing to hopefully being a positive light in that the national security workforce, like there's always going to be a continued need for it. I think ebbs and flows and just kind of hunker down and then, have clearance jobs be in your corner. I mean, whether you're currently cleared, like you should absolutely have a profile on our site because even if you're only passively looking, you could be missing out on sort of the outreach and the messages that recruiters and hiring managers would be sending to you if they find you in our resume database. So, like, there are a couple of ways to like network on our site where you could just be missing out on that from not having a profile. If you're trying to figure out what's next, the content team is always happy to um, try to point you in the right direction when it comes to figuring out like job list and where you should start your applications, taking a look at resumes, things like that. We're always happy to help. And then if you just need to know more about security clearances or how to get in with a contractor, how to convince a company to sponsor your clearance, I mean, we're just here to help. We're all good vibes here.
We'll send them to Lindy.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much, Katie, for joining us. I always love talking to the clearance jobs team. Very knowledgeable on all things clearances, a topic very dear to my heart. So to the audience, check out clearancejobs.com, create a profile. They're constantly updating the site with new cleared jobs. I have profile myself. I get pinged from time to time, and I always take a look and see what's out there. So once again, thank you, Katie, so much for your time. I'm glad we got to chat, and we will definitely have to have you on again soon.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you so much.